Hello, everyone. Today, we'll explore a very important topic in this self-knowledge course. We will give some key explanations about family and attachments. In this topic, we will reflect on the conflicts that arise from our misconceptions about family and how these misconceptions can affect the development of our inner work. We will also examine how attachments and emotional dependencies, those we create around people and things, and often mistake for love, can lead to inner stagnation and conflict. The first thing to understand is that we all have three kinds of families. The first family is connected to the external world, where we find our physical body and personality. This is the physical family. It includes our father, mother, siblings, partner, children, uncles, grandparents, and so on. The second is the psychological family, which is related to the soul, the mind, and energy. This is what we call our internal world. Our psychological family is made up of all our egos, our different negative ways of being. 97% of our essence is trapped there. The third is the real family, which belongs to the spirit or consciousness. It is what we call the inner world of our internal world. This family is made up of the 3% of free consciousness we all possess, our true spirit. To this, we add the essences we rescue from psychological imprisonment through the work of psychological death, since each of our defects has a pure and real part trapped within it. Let's begin by analyzing the physical family. We know that every one of us needs a physical body in order to exist and to carry out the work of our being. Human beings are defenseless at birth, and for that reason we need a mother to take care of us until we are able to survive on our own. This shows us the necessity and importance of having a physical family. But we also know that according to the law of return, every soul has the right to live in 108 physical human bodies. This means we must die and be born again 108 times in each cycle. Therefore, throughout all our existences, we will have 108 mothers and 108 fathers. If we take a moment to reflect on this, and if we learn to investigate our past lives in the astral world, we will see that in each of our past existences we have always had fathers, mothers, partners, children, and siblings. Then we can ask ourselves, which of those 108 mothers is our real mother? Which of those 108 fathers is our real father? And among the thousands of brothers and sisters we've had, who are our true siblings? This is a very important question to meditate upon. The truth is that the people in our physical family are connected to us by genetic bonds from past existences. We usually share with them certain karmic commitments, certain debts, we might say. That's why it's common for us to reincarnate within the seed of our own descendants. We must understand that our parents are in reality brothers who have helped us by giving us this physical body, as payment for a past existence in which we gave them the opportunity to incarnate by providing them with a body. In the same way, when we have children, we are paying for the physical bodies we once received. There is another very important aspect of the physical family, perhaps the most important of all, our partner. We know that for the reproduction of the species, it's necessary to have a partner. But beyond reproduction, what's most essential is that the creation of the existential bodies of the being also happens through sex. For this sacred work, we need a partner. Our partner, then, is not just a romantic figure, but a brother or sister who collaborates with us in the great work of self-realization, and we, in turn, collaborate with them to achieve the same goal. In the same way, our children are also our brothers, souls to whom we are giving the opportunity to have a physical existence. Through this, they too could begin their own work of self-realization. We help them by providing care, education, shelter, and protection until they are able to stand on their own and build their own homes. However, most of us call brothers and sisters only those who were born from the same mother as we were, while we see others in the street as strangers simply because they were not born in our house. What we fail to understand is that everyone is our brother or sister. Our home is not limited by the walls of our house, because the entire planet Earth is our home. All the inhabitants of this planet are sparks that emanated from the sacred absolute sun. and we have all come here for the same purpose, to gain wisdom through the experience of duality. Therefore, our true home is the planet, and our true family is all the beings who live upon it. The love we feel for our children, parents, and siblings must be extended to all of humanity. We must broaden our capacity to love so that just as we try to help the members of our physical family, we also strive to help all human beings, especially by giving them the opportunity to awaken their consciousness and fulfill the true purpose of their existence. But the attachment we create toward the members of our physical family prevents us from seeing this greater truth. It blinds us to the reality that all human beings are our brothers and sisters, and that beyond this universal bond, there is no other title or distinction. Now let's analyze the psychological family. This internal family is made up of elements we call the I's, or psychological defects. They are the many different ways of being that exist within us. We have I's of every kind. They can be summarized in the 7 causal I's: sloth, greed, lust, pride, anger, gluttony, and envy. But each of these 7 is in itself a whole legion of smaller I's, many detailed forms of expression. As Virgil, the Mantuan poet, once said, "Even if we had a palette of steel and 1,000 tongues, we could not list them completely." Each of these defects contains a certain percentage of our trapped essence, which is what gives it life. They are formed and grow through the energy they absorb every time we allow them to manifest through our energy centers. The sum of all these defects is what we call our psychological family, or our internal world. The greatest problem with this internal family is that its members have imprisoned our consciousness. They manage, misuse, and drain the different energies of the centers of our human machine. That's why it's essential to constantly practice self-observation, to discover these defects in our thoughts, emotions, actions, words, sexual impulses, and even in the tensions, sensations, and desires they make us feel. Once a defect has been discovered and understood, it must be eliminated through a petition to our Divine Mother, so that she may free the consciousness and energy trapped within it. This internal family was created through the misuse of our creative sexual energy. The very first time humanity fell into fornication, that is, the expulsion of sexual energy through orgasm and ejaculation, what the scriptures call the original sin, the 7 causal I's were formed, and each time we fornicate, we continue creating more defects. Moreover, when we fail to transform the impressions we receive each day, due to lack of awareness and concentration, we give our energy to these defects, and they multiply even more. Over time, we have created an enormous legion of psychological defects within ourselves. These defects include all our vices, desires, errors, sufferings, pleasures, and reactions. And the truth is, they are dearer to us than even our own physical family or our own children. We can verify this by observing how easily we sacrifice the physical or psychological well-being of our loved ones just to satisfy the desires of our defects. We see people who, to feed a vice, abandon their children, others who, in defending their pride, destroy their relationships, or those who prefer to humiliate a child rather than restrain their anger or tyranny. We continuously feed our violent and negative tendencies, even when doing so harms others. So not only do we refuse to deny our defects, we defend them, justify them, and feed them as we please. That is the depth of our attachment to them. And as you advance in the work of psychological death, you will begin to see and verify this within yourself. There are defects to which we are so deeply attached that deciding to eliminate them will lead us through painful emotional and mental crises. However, we must understand that only by eliminating our defects will we be able to free and integrate the 3rd type of family, the one we will analyze next. Now, let's analyze what the real family is. We call it the real family because it has always existed, and it will always exist. It is our spirit, our inner being, the inner world of our internal world. This family is made up of many parts, all of which are unfoldings or emanations of our Father. God as Father represents wisdom. God as Mother is our essence, the raw material of our being, the creative energy of the Holy Spirit, and the expression of divine love. God as Son symbolizes justice, the psychological trainer, the giver of light and of fire, of wisdom and of love. These 3 primary forces unfold within us into 3 others: Atman, who is our intimate, the ineffable, our inner warrior. Buddhi, who is our divine soul, the Valkyrie. Manas, who is the Christic will, the word, our human soul. But there are also many other parts of our being, such as the intimate Christ, the 12 apostles, the 24 elders, and many others. All of them are divine aspects or sacred fragments of our real being. As we work with the three factors and the revolution of consciousness progresses, the integration of our being begins. Through the elimination of our psychological defects, all the sparks of consciousness that were trapped within the ego are gradually freed. These liberated essences reunite and integrate, forming what we call sacred individuality. In the end, all of these divine parts will merge into one perfect and luminous unity. Now that we have explained the three types of family, let's look at the topic of attachments. What are we attached to? Why do we confuse attachment with love? And on what are our attachments truly based? Let's take a moment to reflect deeply on all of this. What is attachment? Attachment is an emotional bond that extends over time. We can observe it, for example, in the emotional connection we formed as children with certain favorite toys. We didn't want anyone else to touch them, and we cried when we lost them. In the same way, throughout our lives, we have created emotional bonds with everything and everyone that gives us pleasure, with everything we call mine. We create attachments to our mother, our father, our home, our money, our partner, our children, our comforts, and so on. And we believe that what we feel toward these people or things is love. However, it is not love, because attachment always leads to suffering, while true love never causes suffering, since it is a virtue of consciousness. Whenever someone lives with attachments, they inevitably suffer. Attachment and suffering are directly connected. If we are attached to something, we suffer when we lose it. Deep down, we all feel a constant inner emptiness, an emptiness that began when we lost true love within ourselves by becoming disconnected from our own being. Because of that emptiness, we are unhappy, and in our search for fulfillment, we cling to people and material things, trying to create a false sense of happiness, a happiness that lasts only as long as the relationship continues, or as long as we possess that object. We grow attached to comfort and to the people we love, and this attachment blinds us. It prevents us from seeing reality as it is. It keeps us from understanding that everything physical is transitory and impermanent. It is very important that we begin to reflect deeply on this issue and learn to observe how every attachment we have is rooted in fear. We become attached to many things, and then we live in our own inner hell, tortured by the fear of losing them. We fear losing our possessions, our partner, or the people we love. And all of this happens because we do not truly understand nor accept the reality of life and death, how fleeting existence is. We fail to understand that, in truth, death does not exist. A father or mother, for example, becomes so attached to their child that even after the child has grown up, they continue to interfere in their life, trying to control their decisions, choosing what they should study or whom they should marry. In the same way, we become attached to a partner and then live in constant anxiety, afraid of losing them, afraid of betrayal. And through such attachments, all kinds of unhealthy and toxic relationships are created. When we finally understand that every attachment hides a fear, and that behind that fear there is a psychological defect, one that fears losing whatever brings us pleasure, comfort, or security, then we begin to see clearly. We start to reflect. What is the fear behind this attachment, and which defect sustains that fear? When we eliminate the defect through the work of psychological death, we free ourselves, not only from the fear, but also from the attachment itself. And in that freedom, we recover our true capacity to love, which is based on respect and liberty, not possession. For example, I discover that I am attached to my mother because the thought of her death makes me suffer. So I ask myself, who is it that suffers? Then I see that if she were to die, I would lose financial help. So I discover that it is my greedy I that causes that attachment. Or perhaps I realize that I would suffer because I would lose someone who cooks and cleans for me. Then I see that it is my lazy I that holds that attachment. Or I notice that I fear loneliness, and there I find another psychological I hidden behind that fear. By reflecting in this way, we see that it is our ego that suffers at the thought of losing our partner, our house, our car, our children, or anything else to which we are attached. And with great astonishment, we realize that behind what we call love, there often hides egoic interest and fear. We discover that we do not yet know how to truly love, and that in order to love authentically, all those conditionings and attachments must die. This issue of attachment is extremely serious because it can delay or even completely paralyze our self-realization if we do not understand it deeply. Attachment to the ego prevents us from advancing toward the liberation and awakening of our consciousness. Attachment to comfort and the fear of losing our social or economic position can become a terrible obstacle when we try to establish a permanent center of gravity around our inner work. And the attachments we create toward our family members and the fears that sustain them often prevent us from performing any true sacrificial work for humanity, while also making it impossible for us to pass the initiatory trials within ourselves. Whenever our family, or anything we are attached to, weighs more than our commitment to the work of our being, there is no possibility of passing any trial. There are 4 trials that every student must face repeatedly in this work. The trials of air, fire, water, and earth. No one can pass the trials of air if they still have attachments. In the astral world, for example, when we are thrown into an abyss and we scream, that scream is a clear sign of attachment. Attachment to the physical body, to material things, to our children, to anything. The masters make us see this internally by launching us from above so we can feel the terror of losing. That fear shows our attachment, and that's why we fail the air trials. Likewise, our attachments to pride, comfort, lust, and the ego in general cause us to fail the trials of poverty, which are the earth trials. We also fail the water trials, the trials of adaptation, and the fire trials, which test our anger and lust. And because of these attachments, we also fail the small daily tests that life constantly places before us. As a result, we remain stagnant in our inner work. When a man and a woman come together, the first thing they usually do is look for a house. Then they fill it with furniture and begin to establish roots. Soon come the children, possessions, and endless responsibilities. We then become attached to all those comforts. We worry at the thought of losing them. We imagine how life would be without them, and we feel that these things define us. We don't want discomfort. We justify our attachment by saying we worked hard to earn them, and we believe losing them would be like going backwards. We also worry about what others might think if we lose what we own. All of this binds us. We even feel ownership over our children, our wife, our husband, and that attachment blinds us to the reality that everything in life is fleeting. It's essential to understand this conflict between family and attachment clearly, because not doing so can completely halt our inner progress. If we became aware that every time we buy another decoration for the house, we are dividing our love instead of integrating it, we would begin to act differently. Seeking self-realization means integrating love, not fragmenting it. And if we truly understood this, we wouldn't need to throw away our possessions or abandon our families. We would only need to understand why we desire them as we do. If we can do this, also with our loved ones, we won't need to reject or separate from them, because understanding dissolves attachment. When we deeply understand this, we can achieve self-realization in a single life and move forward decisively when important choices arise. We must remember that family is a duty, but we must also recognize the limits of those duties and rights within it. Only then can we consciously build the real family and dissolve the psychological one. Through meditation and psychological death, we must search for the roots of our attachments, those emotional bonds we've created with people, possessions, beliefs, and above all, with our own ego. Only then can we attain true freedom, awaken consciousness, and discover what love really is. And that concludes today's conference. If you have any questions about this topic, please leave them in the comments. As always, I invite you to our next conference, where we'll explore transcendental meditation and how to reach the state of meditation known as samadhi, or the illuminating void, through the koan technique. Thank you all very much. Until next time.